Hey everybody, my name is Nitish, and I'm a husband and owner of Prudent Digital. We are a paid search agency based out of Spokane, Washington, this beautiful city that we moved to right in the middle of pandemic because we wanted to be more outdoors. And we have a good mix of clients, and we serve both B2B and B2C. We're not very specific in terms of either, and it's worked out very, very well. So we work both with e-commerce clients as well as somebody who's selling to directly businesses, and both in terms of a national level or even a more regional state level targeting.
I think Spokane's north of Seattle, right?
Spokane's east of Seattle, 4 hours east. So
Okay.
we are the second largest city in Washington State. Most of the Washington population is based on the west side of the Cascades, and over this side we get a lot more sun.
Nice. Yeah, I never made it to the east of the Cascades.
It's not a very popular spot, I would say. It's becoming popular, and everybody who lives on the west side mostly thinks it's a desert. It's not.
I always thought the Cascades were like a water thing because of
Yeah.
that name. But yeah, I mean, that's super cool. You actually visited a city that's quite different from the Pacific Northwest. You were in Phoenix last month
Yeah.
for a program with Steve Sims and Kasim from Solutions 8.
It was very amazing. And my goal was to start the year on a different note. And I very much achieved that by doing that. I had my first experience of a marketing conference last year at Traffic and Conversion. I had never visited a conference before, so that was the very first time. And I got to see these two amazingly talented and successful individuals. I had attended both their sessions. So that was my first experience, even talking to them, introducing, having a conversation after their sessions. And this was an opportunity to get more of their experience over the years that they've collected. And I was really excited about that. So Phoenix was a very different city. I'd never been to Arizona. This was my first time. Very, very different. I had visited New Mexico, so it was kind of a similar spot, but very, I would say, very big city. I wasn't expecting that. And we got a lot of restaurants to try that were based out of Chicago. So we lived in Chicago for years before we moved to Spokane. And that was very nostalgic, visiting Phoenix and seeing all those restaurants over there as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been to Phoenix myself. I imagine it's somewhat like Texas in my head, which I've been to Texas so many times. But it's a wonderful city, and I hear so many great things about places down south in the U.S. now. Phoenix, Austin, these are all great cities. Like tech is booming everywhere.
Yeah.
You're not a trained marketer. You were actually a full stack developer. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I did full stack development for approximately 7 years. And this is going to sound very dumb, but I wasn't aware of Google Ads PPC. Like as a developer, I was aware of SEO, which is still a lot more popular term as compared to PPC. But I didn't know anything about Google Ads. Like I wish I did when I was getting to be a developer, but everything turned out in a very specific format that I got to learn a lot more before I ever started anything in marketing at being a developer. And that was my journey. So I got to work with a lot of big marketers who had made to 2 Comma Club. I did multiple product launches for companies being like a one-man dev team. And that gave me a very solid footing. When I look back and I realized it was like I was starting to know what's conversion rate optimization. How should a landing page be? And this was back in 2017, and I still didn't know anything about Google Ads. I was starting to build full funnels. I was starting to realize what the user flow should be. And not just that, I was working to build complete email funnels on the process after that. Like how should the user go? If they open an email, they should get another one. If they don't, they should get this one. So I was building all those flows. I was working on setting tracking for those clients. Because being a developer, I had all the access. And when they would work with a marketing agency, I was the one who was setting up the entire tracking process. And I was very fortunate to be on reporting calls when we would look at the marketing report to get to understand certain things. So I had like a very passive introduction to marketing and all of those metrics without having any intention that I wanted to be a marketer. The reason I wanted to become a marketer was, like many businesses, the clients that I've worked with, some businesses worked, some businesses failed. And being a developer, I would have to find a new client once something failed. And it happened enough times for me to realize and get frustrated that I am on the wrong side of the business here. And I just need to go more forefront. And I had started to develop a natural curiosity for marketing, doing all those things over the years. Um, and I, and maybe in 2019, I started to realize there's a thing, Google Ads, and it's pay per click, and that's how it works. I knew Facebook ads before Google Ads, um, and that was my introduction to that.
That's a hell of a journey.
Yeah,
And I see this so frequently. Some of the best PPC marketers and marketers in general that I know today don't come from a marketing background. At least they didn't start in marketing. You're a trained developer. I started in publishing. There are other guests that I've already had on the show who were photographers and writers outside of marketing, and people who did things that kind of go hand in hand with PPC today. So
yeah,
is there any part of your developing career that you feel helps you today as a marketer?
absolutely. How the user journey should be, what we are marketing, what the copy needs to look like, how direct the messaging needs to be, um, how much fluff doesn't help. What should be the journey on the landing page? How are you approaching? What does your offer look like? I've seen products, businesses not work out based on their messaging, they're based on their offers, what they're trying to sell, what the user is looking for. That helps a lot because that is all outside the account. That is the stuff that I got to learn before I ever entered the account.
You have no idea how happy it makes me to hear you say that. I used to be a copywriter. I'm now a growth strategist, and I've always had this phrase that I've used whenever I work with a new team or a new client for several years now, which is basically everything is UX. So
Yeah,
to hear you talk about funnels and fluff and how people should experience a website and experience a journey, I mean, that's just, you're speaking to my soul. But more excitingly, you actually have a story where you've used B2B content for a client to reduce CPAs. I'm a very big fan of using demand generation to help demand capture. So tell me more
right.
about that. I really want to hear about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that we've actively done for the last 2 years, and we still continue to do that. Um, the main process that we do, of course, with like everybody, we focus on the bottom of the funnel whenever somebody searches those direct keywords. We have those campaigns, the search campaigns, which is the big dinosaur here. But other than that, we have really used top of the funnel content or even mid funnel content on Google's display network to generate leads. And the part that's worked out really well and continues to work out is custom segment audiences over display network with bidding strategies like maximize conversion just continues to perform. So something that worked really well and is going away was similar to audiences. They're no longer available after May 2023, but they've worked really well over the last year and even more months. So I'm a little bummed about that. But custom segment is something that continues to work, continues to perform. And we've even tested campaigns over target CPA and maximize conversion. Doesn't really make a difference from what I see. The campaigns keeps learning or keeps bringing us more conversions if it stays on maximize conversion. This is like going to the accounts. I'll just step out for a bit. Um, the process that I follow is we tend to do one campaign, one ad group, one ad, and one targeting strategy. Because there are accounts where I see even in display network where they have a campaign and they would have 10 ad groups and 10 ad groups have 10 different assets. And based on the budget, Google's never able to allocate to those 10 ad groups. It never really works out and it gets clustered between maybe like 3 or 4. So if you're somebody who's looking to market content anywhere you have like a guide, demo, anything, and you want to use display ads on Google, try to limit to a single ad group, single ad, and a single targeting strategy. What it will help you do is find your winners, and you'll be able to kill campaigns way sooner. And where you find your winners, you can then maybe test another ad or something else. And that process works very well. the other thing that I've seen is businesses buy lists. I've seen businesses buy a list of users that might have visited their website, never provide the information, or just email list or a complete list of business owners they want to target. And it has worked. I've seen it work very well on Facebook, but not really well on Google for whatever reason. I don't have a specific answer to that. Google seems to work way better. So in terms of remarketing audiences, then custom audiences, then in market, and then affinity. That's kind of the approach that we follow. One thing that this is something that I've learned over the years, but one thing that we realized was if you are acquiring an email address with a name, whichever content you're providing in return, also give the user the option if they want to schedule a consult or a call or a demo, whatever is your next step in the funnel, give the option right on the first step for the audiences that are ready. And you'll be surprised how many users would choose that and measure those actions in different conversions. So if you have a form that's just name and email, give them a checkbox that pops up a new form where they can schedule a concert, a time, and everything else. Or maybe you want to provide a link. And we've seen in a lot of different campaigns, we get like equal amount of concert requests as we're getting just the emails and names.
Google's set up to connect with a lot of good CRMs, right? They have the native integrations with HubSpot,
Yeah.
with Salesforce, but then you can also use Zapier and set it
Yeah.
up with anything. I love this idea because then you can also take the data set, or you can score the leads and feed that back to Google, and then it can go find you more leads that are likely to book a consult or a demo with you right away.
Right. Here's another thing that we've tested. That if you're selling something, like even if you have a display ad, it's more top of the funnel, but you have an option for the user to make a purchase, any level of purchase, whatever is the next step, and your page also has a contact form. Like if somebody needs to just get in touch, but they also have the option to make a purchase. What we have realized is if we just target the campaign towards the purchase, like if you're only providing the goal for the campaign to find users that will make the purchase, we get the contact forms way cheaper. Like our CP on the contact form drops because we're not providing Google the easy conversion, and it's just not going after that. And we have tested again and again. If we provided, let's say, both conversion actions, this is the contact form, this is the purchase action, we'll start to get a lot more contact forms for a higher CPA. Versus if we just kill the contact form out of the campaign and say the campaign is just supposed to go after the purchase action, miraculously we get more form submissions for same budget. The CPA drops, and we're now the campaign's also focusing on users who might take an action towards the revenue.
We're seeing the exact same thing in our accounts. So for Optmyzr's own PPC account, the more ruthless and hyper-focused we are with the end outcome, the better the results are. And you alluded to that earlier as well. With the campaigns that have multiple ad groups and Google not being able to serve each ad group, you spread yourself too thin with Google Ads, you're not going to get the kind of results. But if you narrow it down and say, this is exactly what I want, and this is all that I want, then it's really good at getting you that information, as long as it has the data to work with.
Yeah.
So that leads into the next question I have for you. On Twitter, you're always involved when we're talking about automation. You're pro automation. Like all good PPC marketers, you also understand that there are certain limitations. Automation can help us be better, but we also have to help make automation better. So what has it been like for you and for Prudent to adopt some of these automation features in search marketing?
I think I was lucky. By the time I was entering this, automation had started to become better. Like I don't have the experience as other OG PPC marketers where automation was bad at a point and they would just be considering manual. So by the time I entered into this space, most of these strategies had gone through the bad phases and they were starting to perform. Right. So my initial experiences were like if the campaign was running on manual, I'm a very curious person. So I was very excited about running experiments. Like we'll split the audience 50-50 and we'll run an experiment for, let's say, a target CPA versus a manual bidding. And what I found was, now this used to work. I don't know if it still works. So we'll run an experiment. We'll get like more revenue. We'll get more conversions. We'll drop the CPA. And if we would implement that experiment as a campaign, it would start to drop down, like our conversions or the users that we're getting. So what we found was if we just keep our manual campaign and we just refresh the experiment after a certain amount of time, Google's more hungry in the experiment phase or wants to prove that strategy. And we did that for a really long time.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, one of the limitations with any new automation that comes in is the data that feeds it, right? And you pointed
Yeah.
that out. You showed up right in time for Performance Max, though.
I had the opportunity to test Performance Max in beta, and even like earlier, like as soon as like I think some of the first campaigns that we were launching were like January 2022,
Mhm.
and it was wild. It was wild to see like early on how much it could do, especially in the accounts where brand like I've seen it work really well even in accounts where brand wasn't big, like the brand name or so these are accounts where these are not like direct to consumer companies. They're more like marketplaces where they're selling other brands but their own brand name is much smaller. And now in those situations I've seen it work tremendously well. In other situations I've seen it in accounts where the brand name is sometimes even the most searched organic keyword. So that's like a very tricky scenario, even for a business point of view, where the most converting, the most organic keyword is exactly your brand name, and everybody's trying to bid on that, or where the brand name brings 90% of the revenue, where the campaign is obviously just going to go towards that, and it aggressively goes toward it again and again and again. So there are like multiple scenarios. As there, it's there. Surprisingly, there's like no one advice anybody can follow in this situation. It's more like perspective based, situation based, and you've got to figure out what works for different situations.
I love the advice and completely agree with you. There's no one answer, but you're constantly testing stuff. You're constantly learning new things, and I know you share them whenever possible with people on social media. Talk to me a little bit about the work you're doing at Prudent. How can people reach you? How can they follow you? How can they ask you questions?
You can find us on our website, prudentdigital.com. The work that we're doing is we're hyper focused in terms of paid search, both Google and Microsoft ads. We do YouTube ads as well, including that. And we're working with both e-commerce companies and B2B businesses who are directly focused on getting attention from other businesses. And we are some of our clients are like even in the B2B space, they're like hardware focused or fulfillment focused. Otherwise, we have some SaaS clients as well. There's one niche group of clients that have been building up is in the school space, and I'm very excited about that. Where we constantly sell to schools across the U.S., teachers, admin staff, whether it's any kind of school furniture or curriculum to schools, and that has been working out very well. I had no idea. Um, like, like one of my first clients in the school space was that sold curriculum for English learners who are immigrants to US and they don't know. And that was my very first experience marketing to a school. And over the time, we've had like multiple clients in this space, and it's a very exciting space. And I'm very happy to be in that.